I'm dealing with a cold, a very minor cold. I've even been tested for COVID. I do not have COVID. And it's just kind of a nuisance. I'm better today than I was, say, Thursday. But anyway, I'm here because I need water, and I might need it in the course of this. Back in ancient times, at least to my children, back in the 1970s, I was a graduate student. I was a graduate student, and I earned a master's in history from the University of Georgia. And I took a course in modern French history. And we ended up looking at Vichy France. Vichy France, when in 1940, when Hitler overran France, the southeastern, approximately third of the country, was in a town called Vichy, and it was allowed to be semi-autonomous, and they were able to raise up a general from World War I that was ancient. He was in his 80s. Marshal Pétain, and he became the de facto ruler of Vichy, even though he was really the puppet, because the person behind the scenes was Adolf Hitler. And they ran it in a semi-autonomous state. As the war progressed, Vichy became more and more cruel because Hitler demanded it. Removal of all Jews, dragging Frenchmen into the German army. A lot of things that were just sad and tragic. And in the end, those collaborators that formed that government were roundly condemned. In contrast, there's Charles de Gaulle, who fled to England, brought as many French soldiers as he could, and they were called the Free French. And when France was liberated in the summer, mostly in the summer of 1944, the heroes were de Gaulle and those with him. But an ethical question was raised by this professor, and I've never forgotten it. What would you do when your land is conquered and you have ability to serve the people? You're a good public servant, and Vichy needs you to protect the French population from German oppression, Nazi oppression. What do you do? And there were people that chose to stay and do what they could under terrible circumstances to protect the French people. And so that brought compromises. It brought terrible choices. It meant sending some of your citizens who happen to be Jewish to gas chambers. And after the war, you were attacked as a traitor to what is truly France. We run into this kind of thing today, where you have a bad leader, and there are people that are good who are trying their best to make the best of a bad situation. I suspect that goes on in Russia today around Vladimir Putin. There may be good people. They're trying their best under difficult circumstances to do what they can genuinely for the Russian people. I bring all this up because what was going on in Judea and in Galilee was similar to what was occurring in Vichy France. The Roman Empire dominated Judea and Galilee. Jerusalem and the area around it was an autonomous area controlled by the high priests. And they were determined to do two things: protect the temple and to retain some degree of autonomy so that their faith could be expressed both around the temple but also in the synagogue. Otherwise, their faith could disappear. And so they were protective of it. and they had to make compromises. The temple began construction about 20 years before the birth of Jesus. It was begun by Herod the Great. And by Jesus' ministry in around 30 to 33 AD, it was still under construction, even though so much of it was put together. And the people loved the temple. It was a place where they would come and provide the sacrifices. It was here that was thought to be the center of their faith. And Caiaphas, and Annas, and the leadership were determined to protect it. On Palm Sunday, it's believed that Jesus came from Bethphage, which is like Bethany, and walked about, 2 miles at the most, over the Mount of Olives, and then down to the Kindred Valley, and then into the city of Jerusalem. And he was proclaimed as their king, but this was not a fancy crowd. These were people that were everyday folk. It might be that they were a bunch of people that didn't have anything else to do. And so there was an entertainment factor to this. Let's find a way to have a good time. But as our liturgy brings forth, and we shift from the liturgy of the Palms to the liturgy of the Passion, the opposition is coming out. And the opposition is coming out led and inspired by the high priest because they're scared of what's going to happen if there's disturbance. And this is entering into Passover. This is entering into the High Holy Days. The Temple Mount is huge. It's easily the equivalent of a parking lot of a large strip mall. It's acres, not acres, but it's large. I've walked it from one end to the other, north to south, east to west. It is flat as a pancake, and it is large. At the north end was a structure called the Antonio, and it was where the Roman soldiers were garrisoned. And they could look from this tower, and they could see everything that's going on the Temple Mount. Everything. The view was unobstructed. And the Jerusalem of King David was a small area to the south. And the temple was on the west side of the Temple Mount. And just to the south, going all the way across, were these tables. And this is where the money changers were. And the money changers had the responsibility of taking Roman coinage and converting it to Jewish coinage so that people could go into the temple and provide purchase of animals, birds, whatever it is they wanted to sacrifice in the temple. And so this is what Jesus encountered. And I have to say that Jesus, all along, had problems with the temple. He could see it as something that is beautiful, it is designed for a purpose, and he felt it was not living up to that. I've mentioned this to you before. It's similar to having the fanciest car around. Best sound system, the comfort is wonderful, it's beautiful to look at and admire. It just has one problem, it doesn't go anywhere. Or it gets 2 miles a gallon. And so Jesus saw this as a travesty. And so he goes in there to challenge it. He's challenged it at other times, but now he is really challenging it. And he overthrows tables of these money changers. These are not wicked people. They're there to serve a purpose. Do they make money off of it? Probably to some extent, because they have to be employed. Whether they're employed by the changing of the money or if they're employed directly by the temple authorities, we don't know. But I know this, that it'd take him all day to turn over all the tables of the money changers. He did probably a couple of tables, and the action was noted, clearly noted. Why did he do it, besides his view of the temple? What I've read and studied about this, and this is from a historical perspective, this is what brought his arrest. There's no question about that. From Matthew, Mark, and Luke. John has a different opinion. I mentioned that last week about Lazarus, but and that's a theological perspective. This is an historical one. So why did he do it? And what I've been able to understand is that it is done because it's an apocalyptic act. Apocalyptic purpose means we're coming to an end of things. Things are to change. A new age coming in. And what he is doing, in effect, by turning over those tables, is that this system is not going to work anymore. This is not what God desires anymore. Instead, we're moving in a different direction. And the temple, as we know it, is going to be obsolete. Because God is going to have a new relationship with human beings. But the tables are overturned. And the Roman soldiers in the garrison, they're basically saying to the Jewish authorities, what are you going to do about it? Because if you don't do something about it, we will. And that behind that means you'll be rendered completely ineffective. Your Judaism can be swept away, and we'll be done with you. And so Caiaphas and the others, they have a choice to make. It even comes out, is it better for one person to die or to keep that person and the nation perish? That's the choice. It's almost like Vichy France, isn't it? It's the same kind of pattern that is going on. And Caiaphas and the others move on Jesus. They have him arrested in the garden. They could do that privately. Then they bring him for trial. It doesn't take much to get his views on the temple and what he has done. And so they hand him over to Pilate, wanting him to be executed. We get all this sympathy. You can even see it in this Gospel of Matthew. Pilate looks like this sympathetic figure. Gee, this is wrong to execute this guy. Why can't we just flog him and send him on his way? Surely the crowd will pick Barabbas rather than Jesus to be put on the cross. But no, it's Jesus. And he looks so sympathetic. And yet one of the contemporary historians, Josephus, said that Pilate in the year 36 AD was removed by the Roman government because of his cruelty to Jewish people. He was considered somebody that I can only believe he didn't really care. This is just another pest to get rid of. That was his perspective on it. It's really something that every day, every time we say the creed, there's Pontius Pilate mentioned. We don't mention Caiaphas, we mention Pilate. So, Jesus gives his life. The giver of life, the emissary for the Father of life, is now to forfeit his own life. In so doing, we're to make sense of this. We're to try to understand. We go around with jewelry, a cross. It's a sign of execution. In today's usage, it'd be like we carry around an electric chair that we carry around. That's how odious the cross was in those times. And yet, for us, it's a symbol of Jesus giving his life on the cross so that we can have a new way to live. And so, what do we make of this? I've given you a lot of nice information. You can see some insight into this. But what about you and me? We go home. We even go through Holy Week and Easter. What can we make of Jesus dying on the cross? What does it mean to you and me? There's a phrase in the final hymn that we will sing today. The refrain goes this way: "Thou didst give thyself to me, now I give myself to thee." So, what do you do to give yourself to him? If you believe this, if you want it, if you can instill it as a core value, how in practical terms can you live this out? I don't have all the answers to this, but I have a tool that might equip you to do as well as you can. Because the thing about a core value is, in order for it to be effective, it has to be worked out in practical, everyday decisions that impact. And I've preached this to you before about the 7 virtues. A virtue means excellence. It comes from the Greek eritos, meaning excellence. And it was put together by St. Ambrose in the mid-300s AD. And you know the 3 that are theological virtues: faith, hope, love. And faith is something that is realized in the next life. Hope is a future good that is difficult but possible. And love is based on what I believe, and I've preached this before, about the gospel imperative. Don't say you love Jesus and then act not in accordance with that. If you love the Lord, you'll act like the Lord. If you're not acting like the Lord, then don't say you love the Lord. But the 4 cardinal virtues, they came from the Roman emperor around the 200s, Marcus Aurelius. And they're prudence, temperance, fortitude, sometimes called patience, and justice. And fortitude basically means sticking to something. Temperance means finding a balanced approach. Sometimes you can be beating your head against something. It's time to pull back and look at it from a different perspective to go back at it again. Justice is a sense of what's right and what's wrong. And we generally know when we're confronted with a decision as to what's right and what's wrong. But the one to me, and it's the hardest, is prudence. You all probably remember a few years ago, people like to wear a bracelet called "What Would Jesus Do?" Prudence is recognizing in timing that a moment has come to either decide or to choose to delay purposely to decide later so that you can think about it. It is the hardest of all. And yet, it is through prudence, I believe, more than any of the other virtues, with perhaps the exception of justice, is that here is where we live that core value. Jesus gave his life for me. Now I give my life to thee. If you give your life to him, then through prudence, you will make the decisions that are in accordance with that. And like Peter brought out in this narrative, we will fail. We will fail. The key to it is to know that we have failed. And out of that, move past. We know that we can be forgiven, and we can go at it again. This is what is so hard to work on, because every time it's a different situation. every time we're good at rationalizing, so we can rationalize our way so we don't have to make the right choice and perhaps make other people angry. We can avoid it. We can wash our hands. We can step back. And yet, we know what is the right thing to do. And it's out of that we grow and we learn and we live into this faith that we believe so strongly in. And in so doing, we give ourselves to Him. I want to conclude this. Those people, Caiaphas and others, who are so determined to protect the temple. It was in its finishing touches in 70 AD, and the Jewish people had had enough. They went into revolt against the Roman Empire, and they were crushed. And the Roman Empire came in there and destroyed the temple. The temple is the stones were made of limestone, and the Roman soldiers banked fires against the stone, and the stone cracked. And out of that, they could tear it down. Finishing touches, the temple is gone forever. The Jewish life now centers around the synagogues, around the reading of Scripture, of a people trying again to find their way to be as close to God as possible. These Jewish authorities represent not just the best of Judaism, but they represent the best of humanity. These are good people put in difficult situations. I want you to know, you could call me a company man. I'm a bishop. I serve the church. I am dedicated to the church. I want it for not only our generation, but for the next one and the next one. And I will almost do anything. And what terrifies me is that Jesus could be in the pew and tell me to do something different, and I will find myself doing what I can to protect the institution. I've been steeped in this all my life. And I'm thankful that churches, for the most part, are good and they're serving. St. Margaret's is such an example of this. But we're called, first and foremost, to follow Jesus. And my hope, my prayer for myself, but for you also, is that we have to choose Jesus first. We can't explain it away. We can't rationalize it. We have to know where we are and what the core value is. The church is here to serve Jesus, not the other way around. And so the challenge to me in leadership, but also to you in your leadership, and how you reach out to people beyond this property. That's what makes a difference. That's what Jesus wants from you and from me. And so we have work to do. Knowledge when we fail, and know what is the right path to take. And when we do that, as I've said to you before, the Lord rewards us with more work. That's what happens. And yet we grow and we learn and we love. And life has a meaning that is just joyful. And it has times of hardship. But it is a worthwhile life to live. It is where we want to be. And so I wish you on this journey, thou didst give thyself to me, now I give myself to thee.